This week on Blasting Turbo Ports, he's got boost power, it's...
K9 Democracy! K9 Biscuits!
You didn't want that trademark. And of course, you got your boy, the guy that'll be driving the fire, Stingray. It's me.
Martin! Oh, he's not here.
Bryan! Of course, this is our team. This is Blasting Turbo Ports. And, Mark, this is our team. How you doing, man?
Pretty good. We just recorded another podcast. I had a stained shirt the last episode, so I put on like a new shirt that's the same, and then I stained it the exact same way.
Same cum shot. Good for you. Good for you.
I have like dark soy sauce colored cum.
You're doing the Lord's work. I tell you what, you're doing the Lord's work. Guys, today we have a cool topic going on. I mean, not Mark's fucking ugly shirt, but you know, we're talking about a game. By the way, we're talking about a franchise that actually inspired the game that he put the shirt on that's dirty for.
You won't believe the power. You won't believe the control. You won't believe the jumps, the curves, or the feeling you get until you experience it for yourself.
Wow, that's fast.
F-Zero for the ultimate G-Force, only on the next generation from Nintendo. Now you're racing with power, superpower.
And that is, of course,
Daytona USA.
Not Daytona USA, though we could do one of those sort of nostalgic arcade throwbacks one day.
But yeah, it's only arcades, but we probably got to take a trip to the arcade to do it.
It is arcades, but we're talking about F-Zero. We're talking about F-Zero. Now, that brings up the first point. I want to jump over before we get into just a brief conversation of the... Before we get into the overall conversation of the original, I do want to talk about 99. That is the most recent, and hopefully you guys will stay because we're talking about the most recent F-Zero 99.
F-Zero 99 will be available exclusively for active Nintendo Switch Online members later today.
So,
they're already gone.
That probably
It's just us talking.
Our viewer retention is like 2 seconds, so, you know. Actually, it's more like 5 minutes. We appreciate those of you that stay for 5 minutes.
Once you let the show get better.
So, we'll see. But, so F-Zero 99 was the first F-Zero thing that's been around, that's returned in eons. And it's crazy that it came back in this format because it is, like you said, Mark, the SNES version essentially just just placed into a hyper-online ecosystem. Basically, that's it. And that's really the whole game.
It's a cool idea, because like Nintendo haven't really done like a Battle Royale racer yet.
Yeah. No.
I don't think like any first party's done a Battle Royale racer, so this is like an interesting idea.
It is.
Now, if they do this with fucking Mario Kart, woo!
This, again, I feel like you said just now, like, they do this with Mario Kart, and then you have, again, it gets overshadowed by Mario Kart again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, same thing. But I will say, like, when I saw this, you know, because we saw this during the Direct, we talked about it, and I jumped into it, and this was my first, I'm going to be honest with you, we played a little bit of GX years ago, but this was my first real dive into F-Zero since then, because, you know, I'm someone that started playing WipEout first. So, you know, with this game, it's quick, and obviously it feels cleaner, and it got me very hooked on this, like, you know, the track ideas and the concept of how it looks. It's a very cool design just because, you know, it's a retro design that we just haven't seen for years now. And obviously there's a lot of posers that attempt to look like this in indie games, but it's cool to see the real thing sort of amplified here on an online atmosphere.
Well, from what I see, more indie games try to like copy after X and GX more than like the original F-Zero. I don't really see any.
Not futuristic racers, but just, you know, those games that are just racing games in general that look like they're in the 80s. They kind of use the same sort of format where, you know, you have the 2D vehicle, essentially, or 2.5D vehicle, and they're driving.
Then those are usually going for Mario Kart.
No, there's arcade racers that do that, but I'm saying that they share that realm. Like, I have a game like called Slipstream that does this pretty much, and it's a pretty cool game, but it does share this design implementation there. So
I guess I want a demake of WipEout, just like make it Super Nintendo looking. I want a WipEout game that looks like Super Nintendo. Make WipEout HD, but for like 16-bit.
What?
Make WipEout.
That hurts my brain. Like,
make WipEout HD, but 16-bit.
That would just probably...
You can have an HD 16-bit game.
Have you seen the original Wipeout? Not the original. I always think the PS1 is the original. But oh god, they're throwing ads now. Oh Jesus!
Can you?
We're gonna move back to the 80s.
Can you put HD Wipeout? I mean, old Wipeout on screen.
Sure. Yeah. I can
Really
do
just
that.
like future Bryan, just like edit here.
Oh yeah, I don't need to fucking type it. Good job. Thank you, Mark.
Citizens, be extra careful. PlayStation's Wipeout is now on the streets. Don't let it moose your mind.
Like, I just briefly, like, this is Wipeout, and thank you, World with Long Plays, but this is Wipeout on the PS1. This still looks more attractive than when I'm playing on the PS3
There's a lot back. We were playing the 64 one earlier.
The 64 version, I think, looks better than the PS1 version, and I think that they just did a better job, rendering that game overall. So here's the thing that I like that's interesting. I jumped in. Oh, let me get out of this. So what's interesting is when we jump back. So we were playing F-Zero 99, and I played that for a little bit, and I was like, all right, let me go ahead and jump into the F-Zero SNES variant, and at first it's like, okay,
By the way, I never owned this game on Super Nintendo. My history with this was an emulator.
Gotcha.
As in with most people.
Yeah,
and I said I never owned a copy.
You're gonna fill us in on GX more than me, but I want to touch up on SNES. SNES, of course, is the first version of F-Zero. It's the first iteration, and it was inspired by basically having the idea is this is a futuristic racer in which billionaires were inspired by F1 in the distant past, and so they decided we want to make a race. We want to make a race that's inspired by F1 that has these vehicles that hover a foot off the ground, and that's it.
I think there was a second Super Nintendo version that's released in Japan with more shit.
Yeah, and that's one of many that before F-Zero X comes out, or a few variants that come out. But this F-Zero, I had a lot of fun with it because it knows what it is. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The difference between F-Zero X and F-Zero, I feel like F-Zero X is so much different. We'll talk about that later, but like F-Zero, the original, it's like you feel that this is a pure, like, hey, we want to make an F1 but futuristic game. I'm like, it's fun to challenge yourself in the ways of this gameplay. The gameplay is really fun, and once you get the hang of it, it's a challenge worth taking.
For a game of its time, this is a fantastic tech demo. This shows like everything you need to know
I don't think that it's as much of a tech demo as something like Star Fox, which I think is legendary. I'm not
saying it's like better than that, but like this is a fantastic tech demo.
Yeah.
This shows you like everything that's like everything great with the Super FX chips can handle.
Yes, indeed. And of course, you only get 4 ships, I believe, or probably there's more that I haven't unlocked, but you start with 4. And again, I'm always with the Fire Stingray, which is the pink vehicle, and I just found that it was the most balanced. I also didn't want to play as the main character just because it's like
I got main character syndrome with video games.
Everyone plays as the main character, so I kind of wanted to try something different, and I preferred that design.
In fighting games, I'm boring. I don't go for alt colors. I go for main character regular colors. Yeah.
The one thing I will say is, compared to 99, something that I found very interesting is that the tracks seem to be much more defined in F-Zero, the original F-Zero, than they are on 99. Like, you really get more personality out of the tracks. So you have to... I have an ad on this thing. I was looking up tracks, and I just want to make sure I had this right. Because the original Cup, you go through, and you have, of course, Mute City, and you have Big Blue. You get to Sand Ocean, and you have sort of tighter corners. But, you get to Deathwind, and Deathwind is just essentially a loop. It's just a loop. You go around a loop, but there's fierce winds, and so you're using the these anti-grav vehicles that are hovered off the ground, and the wind's pushing against you as you're driving. It's such a smart mechanic.
Yeah.
And it's such a fun time to drive. Like, it's so cool to, like, fight against, and it's a challenge, but it's a worthy challenge. It's fun to go against that
imagine
wind.
they put that in 99, it'd be a fucking mess.
Yeah, I'm sure they would. That's the thing. It's like, it feels like you lose some of that personality in the track concept because there's too much going on. There's like 100 different vehicles on the track, literally. Meanwhile, on the original, there's only 4, and there's a few like CPUs that are, obviously they're all CPUs, but you have slower CPUs that take up the track as well as obstacles. But for the most part, it's just those key 4 characters or vehicles, and so you really get to understand the track more, and I really attached to this game so much more than 99. I think because even though you don't have multiplayer, you don't have features that you would get in later F-Zeros, the gameplay, it knows what it is. It's not it's once you get that learning curve, you know what it is, you know how you're playing, and you just want to get better at it. And you know, it's just the tracks are cool. I love, like, for instance, like Silence, which is the end of that first cup. Silence is like has 2 routes that you can take, and it looks simple because, and I'm sure once you get to higher levels, or you play on more of an advanced stage. I just played at beginner level. If you play at a more advanced level, you're probably going to be fucked. But in beginner level, you take that shortcut, you have to dodge some mines, and it's like, and then you get through. But you get there's really sharp corners, and there's really cool design. Like, it's such a cool
notice
track.
is like there's a boost in this game too.
That's the thing that I brought, like, for Game Boy Advance. There's boost in this game, and that's where the Game Boy Advance game is inspired.
So you want
by.
to talk about the Game Boy Advance one, Maximum Velocity?
So
we only played. I think there's 2. We only played one of them, and that's the Maximum Velocity. But they're pretty much the same.
And I just want to say before we
not
move
the
on,
same game, but they're pretty much like the same kind of gameplay style.
Yes. Before we move on to Max Velocity, I do want to say, yeah, I love how they handle. I understand that they wanted to change up the, with X. X is literally almost not the same game at all. Really, but, except for the ships, and that's fine, because there's a lot of changes between its successor as well and X. So GX and X. So, but what I like is you build every lap with a new boost. And if you don't use that boost until the last lap, you can just have a drag, like a roll for 3 in a row. You can maximize. It's strategy. That's the thing, is it's so strategic, this game. The other thing that I want to mention is, unlike a lot of racing games, I think I like going back just because I've seen so many of these hyper-realistic, the cars look real, blah, 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 but they're not fun. They're not as fun as something like this. The cars are usually pretty close behind you, so if you mess up, wherever you are, you might have been far off it. You might think that you're far ahead of these other vehicles, but they're basically right behind you at any point. So it requires that you stay on your on key. I just love everything about what they expect from you, what they want to expect from you, and visually what they attempt to bring out in, the SNES. I just think, want to give a shout out, want to say as much as I can. I had a lot of fun, and I still have fun. I think it's my favorite right now of the SNES games outside of Star Fox that I've been enjoying. So, a lot of
the SNES games?
In the SNES games. That's the one that I'm playing right now.
Many of them. I haven't. You played many of them.
Mm-hmm. No, I haven't. That's the thing. I haven't played many of them. I'm playing
way below shit like Mario World and Yoshi's Island.
Again, I'll get to those platformers, but right now I want to complete Star Fox next, but I want to keep. This will definitely be something that I'll jump into more often than not, just because I like everything about this. And yeah, I understand that Mario Kart sort of has that. It has more characters, but I think there is literal character in the way that these vehicles move. I love how they glide around.
Well, not more characters. It's like there's a lot more personality within the game itself.
Yes, absolutely.
Not going against, not trying to knock off this game. I'm just saying what Super Mario Kart in general is like. There's a reason like that franchise is like just popped off the way it did.
Absolutely, you're definitely not wrong. I just I can definitely see them both as I just wish. I wish that, like we'll talk about later, there's a balance that they could have with both of these.
Yeah, I think this is a fine game. This is definitely a classic. If I had to go to a 16-bit racer, I would play Super Mario Kart over this, even though I don't like Super Mario Kart that much either.
I just feel like that look. It's like the difference between Mario Kart. If you want to play a Mario Kart, you don't go to SNES Mario Kart. But if you want to play F-Zero, you could play GX, but because the SNES is so different and it knows what it is, you're probably going to have a very good time with this as well. And I think that that's the cool balance is, you probably aren't going to lean into, you know what I mean? Like if you're looking at Mario Karts, I think you're not going to be like, oh, let me go all the way back just because you're probably going to just, jump into.
I think with multiplayer you can still have a lot of fun with Mario Kart, Super Mario Kart.
That is true. That is an advantage.
Because even Super Mario Kart has a battle mode too. And if you play with the right people, it's stupid fun.
That's a good point. I forgot to mention. You're right. You have
you don't really have multiplayer.
You don't have multiplayer here. This is a single player experience, which again is why this reminds me of MotorStorm. MotorStorm is a single player experience in its first game, and then they expand outward later into multiplayer. They really wanted to focus on the vehicles, they wanted to focus on the tracks, and so again, this just reminds me, very similar how they play. So let's...
For racers, if I was limited to Super Nintendo, I'd probably I would think about playing this. If you're talking about racers of this era, I'm not sure if it came up before this, but I'd definitely play Outrun over this.
I could imagine. I mean, this was top of the decade. This is 1990, I believe. So 91, 90. So yeah, there's.
Not sure. I think Outrun probably is earlier than this.
Yeah.
But I love Outrun. Rather.
Right, and I think it's in a tough spot where in a few years after this, you're at a point where graphically things evolve so quickly. But before we get into the graphic evolvement, let's jump into like you said, max velocity here. Alright, we're going to talk about, like you said, Mark, we're going to jump into F-Zero
Maximum Velocity.
Now, this is the game that came out about over a decade after F-Zero, the original, but it's the closest that resembles its predecessor, its original predecessor. So, like you said, like we were talking about before, Mark, before we were looking this stuff up, I put out the wrong video, of course, but the Max Velocity is the true successor to what they were going for in the original game, because X just it just goes on such a different branch, and GX is just its own game at that point, that it doesn't keep a lot of those same cues, but this does. You have the familiar boost format that the classic game did. You have the way that the power structure is still there, sort of, and then you have obviously just the design of itself is very reminiscent still of that classic style. It's not so futuristic looking that it's away from that SNES format, but it's evolved enough that you can have a good time. Now, obviously...
Yeah, so, sorry, I just made sure, I had to look it up and make sure. So yeah, Maximum Velocity came out in 2001, and GP Legends, I think that one's the one based off the anime. That one came out in 2003.
Yeah, that's the funny thing too, they had an anime based on this game. I mean, based on the franchise.
It wasn't all that interesting.
Oh, you saw it?
Some of it. To be fair,
look at you. You're watching F-Zero stuff. I appreciate you, Mark. Just for this, you knew this was
not recently.
You were watching just for this, Mark. Come on, you were watching just for this, and you were so nice to.
I'm not even watching this fucking podcast. No, it is. Look at our views.
Mark, this is where it's all going to change. You're going to see 49 views, and then you're going to see 100 views. So
you're going to see it all go down after people find out who we are and what we are.
They're going to see that we're deep racists, and they're going to love it. Anyway,
drama channel just reporting on this.
But yeah, moving back, Max Velocity though, came out in 2001. Obviously, 2 years later, GX would come out, but 3 years before this. Okay. What did I say?
GX.
What did I say?
No,
did I say something else?
Were you talking about the Game Boy?
I'm saying 2 years after GX would come out.
Okay.
And then 3 years before this, the X came out. So this is just in the middle of it all. Funny enough, in the middle of those two home consoles. Nice. So. Yeah, you just, this is, again, I think what limits this game is not, the game is a great idea. I like the idea.
It is much faster than the Super Nintendo one.
Like you said, it's faster, it's got better processing power for, the Advance has a bit more processing power, but the system itself, especially depending on which system you choose, let me pull up gameplay so you guys actually see not our faces. But the gameplay itself, is limited by the system, just the way that the system is designed. The SP, now, obviously, if you have small hands, I think it'll be fine.
It has lots of buttons in Super Nintendo.
It doesn't have enough buttons, so you're using the same buttons as you would for the rudders. So, of course, you're in a weird situation where, if you want to go a certain way, but you don't want to use the rudders, but you want to use boost, you're in a weird dilemma. Also, if you have an old GBA system where its triggers just aren't working, you're in a weird spot where the boost just may not work at all. So this game is just hampered more than almost any other game in the franchise, or I'd say any GBA game is sort of hampered by just its placement overall on the GBA, just because that's just.
And we were playing this authentically. I had to bring out my old GBA.
You pulled out the
I had to find a working link cable. I didn't only had the one pack, so we played single packs, and we were only able to play the one stage. Right. And the game choose the carts for us.
Yeah, that was, very much like you said, reminiscent of Download Play, but a predecessor, of course. But yeah,
We also had no sound.
sound.
No, we had sound. We had no music.
No music, just the standard background noise, essentially. I love the fact that the crafts are more designed here. That's the key. Crafts are more designed here. The tracks are still very reminiscent of SNES era, but they are different. And they were going for that tone. But again, I think that because they were able to, like you said, get more power out of it, they could really put more personality into the crafts, which I think, again, that's another difference between, and we'll talk about X next, that's the difference between X and, F-Zero, the original, and this game, is the crafts are really sharp. I think in, obviously, the original game, they only could do what they could with the 2.5D, but in this, it's like, hey, we have fully, essentially rendered models here. We can go all out, and just then give it that look that we really wanted to do in the original, but go even further. And I do like that. I like how it looks. I just don't like how I have to play it. Yeah, that's my. And I bet I could probably play this. Like you said, you can't play multiplayer on the DS, but I bet on the DS it's wider than the Game Boy Advance. So probably have a better time on that.
I mean, if you ever want to play like multiplayer on the Super Nintendo type gameplay, this is your chance. So it's interesting. Cause it's very much a sequel, and it's very much the same type of gameplay as the Super Nintendo one.
Absolutely.
So if you wanted like more of that Super Nintendo gameplay, like both GBA games like really follow after that, like style.
Like you said, there was Maximum Velocity, and then there was, what was it? AX?
Yeah, and I played very little of these. I own the actual cartridge, and it's like, I'm not a big fan of this type of F-Zero.
Yeah.
Because, like, I can, again, for its time, I can imagine it's very fun. I can imagine, like, it's very new, but, like, I've discovered these games at an age where, like, everything, like, that's been inspired after it already exists.
Yes.
And done a better job, so it's like, because
I absolutely.
I think in terms of like futuristic racers, I think I already have more experience with Sonic Riders more than I play F-Zero.
I can't believe you compared Sonic Riders to.
It's a hover futuristic racer. There's a lot of like futuristic racers. We
didn't. Yeah, you're right. We didn't bring those up.
Because they're gonna bring out WipEout a lot.
These are the big dogs, I would say, though. End of the day, I think that this is a pretty good successor, and but I think overall the key is just that it's just hampered. And sorry, this is what I was gonna say. I definitely understand your point that like. Yeah, there are better games. Like, for instance, I would never do this with Gran Turismo. Like, I played Gran Turismo Sport, and I had a lot of fun with it. I'll play Gran Turismo 5, and I'll play Gran Turismo 4, but I will not go back to Gran Turismo 1, and I maybe will go back to 2, just one race just to try it, but I'm not going to go in and, you know what I mean, like, go full out with it. I think the difference here is, like, I've played, like I said, for the original, I've played so many games where it's like, look at this hyper-realistic car, look at Forza Horizon, look at these arcade racers like that have hyper-realistic cars, like, ooh, they look great. It's like, this, when we get back to something like this, there's not a lot of these, except in the past. And so having F-Zero on the SNES Switch Online was a cool ability. Like, it's cool because there are still some mid games that are from the SNES racing era. But this is an actual well-executed racing game from the SNES era. Not this, but the F-Zero SNES era. And so something like the Game Boy Advance, I think, it just fails because of the platform it's on. And it might have been fun then, like you said, but because it's on the Game Boy Advance, I think, you're just in a rock and a hard place, and you probably should just jump into SNES if you want that experience of just what it's going for. Anyway. Let's talk about F-Zero X. This came out late in the N64 era. You had a ton of racing games on the N64 that you can reference to, and F-Zero X is a complete change-up. It is a complete evolution. It's like they saw the N64 what it can do technologically, and they said, you know what, we are going to maximize this. We're gonna go wacky mode. I can't say maximize. We're gonna go wild. Basically.
I'd say maximize because this is like this is extreme because this is very much an evolution, and this is like a new type of racer at the time. How far did WipEout come after this?
WipEout came out in '95, the original.
Okay,
it came out in '64 and '95.
And when was this come out?
This came out in '98.
WipEout was before this?
WipEout was before this, but not before F-Zero.
I know, but like before 64?
Yes.
Shit.
Yeah.
I guess they saw WipEout and tried to improve on that, but like this is a big evolution from the Super Nintendo game. This is a comeback.
There's a lot of personality here too. Well, we brought up the fact that like there's like it's funny how you start, you see the menu, and it's like again, like I'm not saying it's a problem, I'm just saying like it's funny how like again, Nintendo game 95 and 98 when big boobed women holding up single race, GP, multiplayer, like 2-player.
Yeah, they're fully clothed. They got a full suit on. There's no cleavage or anything, so they're fine.
I know. I'm just Mark. I know you have to go after it. I'm just saying, like, damn. Like, I'm just saying, like, the fact that they're holding up. You know, there's personality in the game, and the fact that like, you know, it's cool in the '90s. Let's do this, or you know, you have the cool that rock intro, the N64 start. Like, fuck, man, that's awesome. Like, like. Everything about this game is like just awesome and cool for the time, but it's a complete diversion of what F-Zero was. Because to me, when I jumped into this last night, it was like, wow, this is like they know what they were going for with the original F-Zero, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but here it's like we are just gonna go balls to the wall, whatever we can do. Because F-Zero already was a technical sort of math, like pushing technical boundaries, or just using the technology, I should say, not pushing technical boundaries, because again, it's not Star Fox, but doing what it can with the technology of SNES at the time. And this does the same with N64, so you get these, you know, you get these maps that are just wild and wacky and just all over the place, and like we see here, flips and spins, and you know, like there's a track where you're just on a tube that curves around. I think that's like four tracks into the first cup. There's a track where you're just on a tube and you just are trying to stay on it. And it's like, who made this? Who the f made this? What is this? This is weird and makes no sense, but it's a choice. And I will say, like, I like that they finally got to the point where it's like, all right, we can make now cities that aren't far off in the distance. We can make buildings. We can make tunnels. They clearly went all out, and it's good to see. But it's totally a different F-Zero completely.
They try to make this more about speed than I guess like futuristic racing, because the obstacles.
By the way, not to cut you off, but I'd say this is much more arcade racer than the previous. Sorry.
Yeah, but like the obstacles in the old one, they were much more of a danger. They were much bigger.
Yes.
And like now the like little like dot like circle obstacles are like very small. And they're on the side of the tracks.
There are some when you
it's
get to
it's
later
just all
tracks,
about speed, and like
yeah.
you like the biggest obstacle is like watching your speed and just like trying not to crash in or just try not to fall because you're going so goddamn fast.
Yes.
In the original, can you like choose how much like speed and acceleration you can have on your car?
Well, again, you have boost, but here you maximize it. You don't have that scale.
Is this the first F-Zero with that scale?
Yeah, I believe yes. Yes.
Because well, we didn't mention, because I think even the GBA added that.
Yes, indeed.
Even though it came after this game, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think you lose the boost. Like the difference here is the boost is now automatic once you get past, I believe, when you go, right?
You don't start with a boost.
First lap, right?
First lap. Once you get past the first lap, then you gain boost power, which is like the
you've got boost power.
Yeah, which is like the iconic phrase, "You got boost power."
That's right. And again, like this is you hear the classic tune, and this is like clearly when F-Zero. This is when clearly F-Zero became more of a mainstay in people's minds. I think obviously the original has its place, but this is the start of when more people sort of attracted to it, and that's because I think
this is when it became its own IP.
And again, this was a late stage. This is a late stage N64 game, so of course, you're at a point where it's like, all right, what's on this? And obviously, when I mean late stage, I mean mid-cycle, because of course, N64 games were coming out through 01. and even later in some cases. But you know what I mean? Like there were like third-party N64 games were still coming out.
It's definitely one of the fastest like racers on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it also does have its own sort of gameplay style. You can feel it.
I'm not sure if it's the fastest because I know San Francisco.
No, there's somewhat. Oh, Rush is crazy. Rush
San Francisco Rush is on Nintendo 64 too. I don't know how. I played the Dreamcast version to hell and back. I'm not sure how the Nintendo 64 version is, but I know that game is like fucking fast. I love that game to death.
Someone put a ROM on our high school's teacher Dropbox, and we used to play that game all the fucking time. At like everyone in our computer class, or I would play that, but people would play like Super Mario. Mario 64 and
Smash Brothers all time, every day, all day.
And then they got rid of the Dropbox, and everyone was sad. But it was just fun. Like Rush. Not to go on a tangent, but Rush is another great game on the N64, of course. There's also futuristic game Aero Gauge. Aero Gauge is another one. I will pull this.
Was
up.
it on the Nintendo 64?
Yes.
Why you didn't tell me? We could have played that one. I had the flashcard with everything.
I know, but I didn't bring it up. We just had this conversation, so I didn't fucking remember. Right? Well,
you failed.
So let me pull this up. This is Aero Gauge. This is just a brief tangent, but this is Aero Gauge. This goes all out.
Those are cool. It's like Hot Wheels.
It's awesome. This was so much fun.
Hot Wheels and F-Zero had a baby.
Yeah, so this was fun because again, like you're all in. Like you're not just sitting on a track. You are up in the air, and you've got a boost gauge, and you have to make sure your temperature doesn't go too high. And like the track is yours. This is a free roam basically, where you can go whichever direction you want, not freely.
Open world.
Everywhere. It's not super open world, but it's like this was one of those things where it's like, how far can we push into the future, basically? And so to me, like F-Zero is another one of those games where not F-Zero, but it's one of many games in this N64 era where you were really pushing on what can we do in this space, and. Yeah, so just wanted to touch on Aero Gauge just because we were talking about other sort of games in this era, and we will bring obviously WipEout.
We should play that like it's next time you show up.
All right, so I want to make a correction, by the way. So I said earlier that Mark has a glum face because I said something wrong, but I said earlier that WipEout came out in '95. WipEout, Aero Gauge, which we just brought up, and this game all came out the same year. So this was the year of futuristic racers. Fucking weird. I don't know what's going on here. But everyone's
all the rage.
All the rage, apparently. Future edgy racers.
Wait, so what year was this? We got 1990.
This was 98.
Yeah, I told you, because I think Rocket Power existed around this time.
I told you,
it's the Extreme era. Extreme.
Let me make sure WipEout the original came out. WipEout came out in '95.
I don't want to go on Rocket Power.
No, WipEout the original came out in '95.
Okay.
That was on PlayStation and Sega Saturn.
Was there a WipEout sequel around this time?
There was WipEout 2097, which came out in '96. So there were two WipEout games. One came out in '95, one came out in '96. Then WipEout 64 came out in '98. So they were on a mission. They made back to back to back, and yeah, they weren't playing around.
And Rocket Power came out in 1999. This was the Extreme era.
I like how you found a way to loop in Rocket Power. But yeah, man. It's just funny because like you said before, or I guess my point was not wrong because WipEout did come out in '95 to '96, so they did have inspiration to kind of know where to lean on. But it is also fun. It kind of tells you that maybe WipEout was a massive deal that many other developers thought we can do this too because we had 3 games following, which is just weird, just so weird. You're off center now. You fucked yourself up. Good job, buddy.
Trying to be as tall as you. So you're not working out. Fuck.
Just leave. There you go. Yeah.
Just keep talking.
It's your hat. It's your hat. That's why it's not.
I'm not losing the hat.
All right.
Andy won't like me if I don't have the hat.
Good point. Jesus. All over it.
Toy Story reference. I don't know an actual guy named Andy. Leave me alone.
But point of the matter is, I think F-Zero stands on its own, but clearly, I think we have to we'll come back to this maybe in the future and say, what is the best racer? Because WipEout, when it got to N64, which was a few years after its original game on PlayStation and obviously on DOS and then on Saturn, it actually looked pretty good on the N64, whereas the big difference here is, and this I do want to counter, you said in the beginning that this was maximized, they maximized the N64. Clearly I don't think they did with the key thing they didn't was on the vehicles themselves. Like, whereas on the original, and then we see on Max Velocity, which is kind of close to a spiritual successor, this really tones down any sort of deeper design. It's such a simplistic look for these vehicles.
Are you sure you got, because like compared to the first game, you got like a choice of like over like 30
No, I'm not
vehicles.
saying it's not variety. It's the detail in the vehicles. I mean, look at this. Look at how bland they are. There's nothing sharp in it. It's just flat. Like you had well defined. Like, here's what we want to have. We want to have engines clearly cut out here. We want this and this here. You had that on the SNES where it's clear and well defined. This, it's like you lost definition, it felt like, in at least the vehicle design. Whereas, yeah, you have more vehicles to choose from, but they're not as well defined as in the SNES.
Well, this game as a whole has a simplistic design, because like
yes.
WipEout has more thought put into its design. This has like, in terms of like being a game, this has more like thought put into the gameplay. It's just like there's like more fun obstacles. It's like weird. It's like you said, it's weird. It's wacky. It's just like off the rails in terms of like speed and gameplay, and it's like very much more arcadic, like more than like any other futurist racer that came around this time, and like that got inspired by the original F-Zero.
I mean, I think Aero Gauge might be, and again, we'll go back and play that. But I'm looking at Aero Gauge, and I forgot. I totally forgot about Aero Gauge. But I think that's more like, look at this arcade game. You can float, you can fly, you can race, but you're floating instead of just flat on the ground. Like, I do think that's a bigger take. But maybe this is closer to F-Zero, the original, than I let on, if you're looking at something like Aero Gauge in comparison, but just staying fruitful to that because it's still on track. But again, I think that this is quite a reach away from where they were sort of leaning on that F-Zero look in the past, and they went all in on, hey, this is future racing, we are going to go wacky, and this is wacky. They gave the vehicles drivers with personalities, basically, or just sort of cut out personalities, just simple.
Well, like, if you go into the original F-Zero, it feels like, again, the original F-Zero feels more like a traditional arcade racer, and like especially Sega was just already making a lot of those anyway. So it's like
no, because it's, again, I think it knows what it is, and again, I think it goes much more on being a sharper than standard arcade racer, because to me at least, the original leans way less in being just a standard arcade racer. It knows what it is. It was inspired by F1, and I feel like they really were going after that. And you can tell in the original. This one, you just don't know where they're going. Like, is this just a racing game? This is just a racing game that's wacky in the future, and it doesn't lean on any specific thing except being a wacky racing game in the future. It leans away from being more defined, like what you need to do for this, and understanding the tracks. You just race. You make sure your energy doesn't run out. And that's the key, and that's really.
I think it's also about like balance. Just like try to balance out your speed along with because it's like a racing platform in a way too. Just try to survive on these weird track layouts. Again, the Super Nintendo one, it's like because it doesn't feel like you're hovering or anything. It does feel like you're close.
Well, you're skating. You're still. You do feel it in the corners. You do feel like you're. If you don't,
it feels slippery.
When you use the bumpers, when you use the bumpers, then you get that skate. Even if you don't, you get that skate.
It's more slippery than other races around the time. But like, my thing is like,
I just don't think it's. There's I think well-defined balance. Again, I think it knows what it is. It's not too slip, but there's a difference here. This is slippery. This F-Zero is fucking slippery, man. Like, F-Zero X is slippery. F-Zero not as slippery as this. That's why I mean, like...
For me, I think it uses the slipperiness better.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like, I think that they just said, we're going to go all out being a racing game, not leaning toward that tone of the original. We are going to, we're going to have slip and slide. We're going to go from mad, here's speed, here's this, all that stuff.
I mean, because keep in mind, we're talking about futuristic racers. I mean, just racers in general, because especially Sega is just dishing them out. Like, a bunch of other companies are dishing out racers. There's so many racers, like, in terms of, like, not even the home console market, like, up the wazoo in the arcade market in general.
Right.
It's like there's racers coming out all the time, like, from the early era to all the way to like probably the 7th generation, when arcade games just stopped being popular. That's when we just stopped getting racers in general.
I agree. I agree. If we're talking about Nintendo specifically, That's where I thought we were leaning on at first, because we were talking about Mario Kart in comparison for the first. We started leaning toward.
Yeah.
And again, I think Sega was doing their own thing, absolutely. And
Yeah.
they definitely have a place in this realm, definitely.
They got a lot of racer franchises.
But yeah, I think, when you move, the key here is, again, just completely new direction, or just a big evolution. If we're going to say evolution, this to me is more of a revolution, completely changing what F-Zero is. And I think it helps because, of course,
and I think it stands out, I think it stands out against other racers around the time, too. Like how fast and platforming this kind of racer, this specific racer is. Yes,
definitely feels faster, feels jumpier, because we watched that aero gauge gameplay. We played WipEout on the N64, and both of those do feel a little more. They don't. F-Zero, WipEout feels fast, but it doesn't have the platforminess, and aero gauge did not have the speed. So this one nails both of those things, and so yeah, there's still specialty in both. I do want to bring up, though, when you talk about, great thing here, don't know what they were doing with Death Race was absolutely unnecessary. It feels like, hey, here's an extra gameplay mode that has nothing. Like good luck figuring. I feel like people just definitely didn't know what that was until they had the internet. I'm sure people were wondering, what the fuck do you do during Death Race? Because, if you don't know what you're doing, you're just spinning in a fucking loop for an infinite amount of time. Absolutely makes no sense.
If you can rubber band that A button, you got a good screensaver on you.
Yeah. Oh my god, dude, it's crazy. But yeah, man, I and again, the N64 controller, just not to spend too much time on that, but the N64 controller, nostalgic but bad. Nostalgic, but man, they. Like we were saying before, like we were talking about before.
I look at it as a weird toy than an actual controller I want to touch.
Yeah, it's you see the progression between the original NES to the SNES. You even see when Game Boy was introduced that it had shared design, to not go stray too far away from what they had learned from the SNES and the NES the NES to the SNES evolution. When they got to the N64, they said, all right, we're gonna bounce off the wall. We're gonna snort cocaine and do whatever the fuck we want. And that's where you get this fucking control.
I was talking about earlier before, the natural evolution of the N64 controller is the fucking Wiimote nunchuck. It's just the N64 controller, but broken apart and connected by a wire. And I like I said, I like the Wiimote nunchuck for games that have motion. When there's games without motion, I fucking hate those controllers.
That is a good point. That it literally is detached, the detached variant. Especially
look at the nunchuck.
Especially if you,
that's the bottom of the N64. The nunchuck is the middle of the.
It's literally the middle. Yeah, but especially if you have the classic controller with the actual, holsters at the side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you have the controller, not just the round one, but you have the one that comes down with better
Pro controller,
grips.
Classic Controller Pro. Classic Controller Pro.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, is that what you just said?
That's what it is. Yeah.
My bad. Yeah. So I thought you said the Classic Controller, not the Pro. My bad. But yeah, it's funny how that literally is the N64. I didn't even realize, but yeah, it's very reminiscent and actually is. So let's move on, because Mark, you have much more to say about this. But obviously, when you talk about the evolution. Or revolution, I think you talk about F-Zero X, and yes, that was a revolutionary step. And then I think you have the bones of what we see here moving into an evolutionary step.
Well, also it paved the way for more kind of racers to kind of take after this, because this is for a type of racer, it is just evolutionary with this type of platforming and racing.
Oh my bad.
Yeah. But I think even non-futuristic type racers even take after this too. I'm not sure if San Francisco Rush came afterwards. We have to do our research.
Yeah, that was who developed. That was Sega, wasn't it? Who made that?
No, it was not. It was somebody. It's some other smucks.
Oh, we can take some time. Let's find out. I think that came out probably after, but 2049 came out in the arcade machine was released in 99, so they would have been developing around the same time. Which again, everything was doing futuristic. You know what I mean? Everything was futuristic. This didn't come out on consoles until 2000, but again, the arcade machine was 99. So take that what you will. Everyone was basically developing everyone was developing a futuristic game, racing game, or a lot of developers were. And again, WipEout was ahead of the curve on that, I think. If you want to talk to someone if you want to talk about sort of a developer that was ahead, definitely WipEout. They got in 95. They made another one in 96. They then jumped into N64 as well in 98 at the same time as everyone else sort of making other games. You talk about, like we said before, Aero Gauge. F-Zero finally came back with X in 98. And then you have, like we just said, now you have Rush, which came into, they were developing it at that same time, but didn't come out until 2000 on home platforms. So, yeah. But we talked about successors.
I guess it helped inspire more racing games that have more platforming and stuff.
I think definitely when you think about games on the following systems, definitely. I think a lot of games, probably PS1, GameCube, and Jesus, thought I had a loop on this. Oh, on the PlayStation. Basically on the next platform up. I think those are where you see other things. Well, that's why I wasn't looking. But when you have platforms that are or games on that next gen, I think that's when you started seeing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's when you started seeing it. I think it was just a little too quick for them to really react to F-Zero X, but I think that WipEout definitely was the key configurator to sort of push forward. Now, again, F-Zero, the original, already out, but I mean, 3 years ahead of time, that's when developers sort of notice you. It takes time to develop these games, and I think...
like I said, races are just coming out a dime a dozen, so, like, they're just trying to like one up themselves every time.
Yes.
And they're like, so I think there's probably some that are not inspired by F-Zero. They're just like, we're just gonna take place in the future, and these are cars without wheels.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There we don't know if Aero Gauge was inspired by, because again, it's a completely different game mode to something like F-Zero X. It's just floating. It's not even F-Zero at all. It's just floating racing. It's literally...
I know, so you probably could even compare it to Wave Race.
I don't know. Wave Race isn't futuristic, right? I mean, come on.
It's not futuristic, but it's still cars without wheels.
Sure.
Instead of floating...
floating on air... Are you saying that F-Zero led to the Pixar effect of, like, what if it was a car, but it didn't have wheels? What if it was a racing game, but it didn't do this? Like, that's more like...
I'm not saying that, but, like, it's like... I'm saying, like, we're getting so many racing games, it's just, like... It's well, like there could be some, because I'm saying like there's so many inspired by F-Zero. There could be some that are not really inspired by F-Zero. They're just trying to something different.
Yeah,
because like again, they're just trying to one up themselves when it comes to racing.
I mean, this '90s era is when you get the Need for Speed. You get like Test Drive, and then Test Drive went and did like many different variations and like off-road and this and that. You get all these different ATV racing games. You get all that. Like every racing was just overwhelming in this timeline and in this point in time. Like mid to mid '90s to mid 2000s. Racing games were all over the place.
It's weird how we got
shovelware games, high production levels, or at every level, racing games.
It's weird that like going to the future now. It's like we've oversaturated the market with racing so much, but like nowadays,
rare.
It's not completely rare, but like it's like they don't come out as frequently. It's like when we see a new racing game, we're like, oh, new racing game, finally!
But it's also...
That's not Forza Gran Turismo.
Yeah, but it's also that studios are less reliant on racing games. Gamers are less reliant on racing games too. They're less interested. And also, indie games, we're starting to see there's a big difference between AAA high production value and indie games. There's a lot of shovelware that's just not even a good racing game. There's some that's great. Like I said, Slipstream on the Switch, and I think on all platforms right now, is a great indie game that was made at a very low cost and is a fun time. But you have a lot of it, and you just go to you know what's funny? I went to Coming Soon on the Switch Online store, on the store, the eShop or whatever. And I thought I was going to see, here's Mario RPG coming, here's Mario, here's Wonder, here's this and that. You know what I saw? I saw 12 like shovelware quick release games that are garbage. Racing Simulator 12.
Witch Broom Racing, I remember that was the first one of the first games I saw on shovelwares I saw on the Switch when it was new.
But it's just like there's just trash being thrown into racing development now. It's not, you're just using, there's a lot of lazy people that are just developing games. I'm just going to be honest. A lot of lazy people developing games using renders that are already there for them. Like, here's a racing game, and I just put this preset in my game, and I didn't do shit. And it's a lot of trash. And then sometimes you get mid-level games, like Hot Wheels Unleashed is one of few mid-level games. But you get a lot more kart racers than you do now, standard like arcade racers, and you definitely don't see futuristic racers out there anymore. Yeah.
You think like when we perfected like internet multiplayer, you think racing games would like thrive? We get like a ton of AAA studios just like making a ton of AAA racing games. So like, nah, not that many. Not that many like big studios are making racing games.
I think they noticed.
We're getting a lot of racing games, but not from big studios.
I think online actually closed the door because more people were flocking to one specific game. Like for instance, you had more, but now there's more people than ever that were playing Horizon 2 like, on the Xbox 360. Horizon blew up. That's why Horizon still exists. Forza Horizon. It was so massive for its time. People were losing their minds. It was like, man, look at this cool online ecosystem. Such a cool concept. And they loved it. But you're playing less of other games because now you made this one ecosystem and less people are playing other games to sort of spend time in. You know,
I feel like when you're looking for like when back then when you're looking into like couch multiplayer, what's like a guaranteed?
Well, not couch, but I'm saying if you're doing online. Like,
and I know.
Oh, but you're bringing up couch.
Yeah, but like if you want like a guaranteed game to have like couch multiplayer, you can always like see like a racing game like, okay, this is guaranteed couch multiplayer. I'm gonna get this. But like nowadays, so we're getting some racing games like even Forza, like you'll split screen.
And I think Hot Wheels was only 2-player.
It's only 2 players,
which sucks. I mean, it's Hot Wheels, dude.
And like, cause I bought like Cruisin', which I'm so glad is on console like that right now. Great game. It's gonna have its own episode eventually.
Oh, fuck
but like,
yeah,
but like I had 4 players, and then like I went to Hot Wheels Unleashed. It's like only 2.
It sucks.
It's like the type of game that would like thrive in 4 players. What the fuck's going on?
And they just the problem is they see that their audience doesn't really care all that much. They see that most of their audience is online, and most families are just. Again, most kids are.
I love the look. I love the cars. I love the look of the tracks.
Yeah.
Gameplay is not all that great. No. It could be faster. It could be more toyetic, honestly.
It's more Hot Wheels.
Hot Wheels Unleashed.
Yeah, I thought that it was a heavy. I didn't like the gameplay at all. I was very surprised. I was like, man, this game blows. This game blows to me.
Not that great.
I was like, how is this so discomforting?
Could be way better.
Way better.
I know.
Yeah.
I think
like
the sequel comes out this month,
and it's
or
right,
it already came out.
It does, but it's not that this game is. It's not the worst game ever made, but
it's not.
But it's like to me, there was fun in shovelware games, like back on the like PS2. I used to play games like Hummer Badlands and like Ford versus Chevy and like these games that were
Gran Turismo.
These games, shut up. But like these cheap licensed games, or I should say mid-level games. Where it's like you develop them, you get them out, done. But they were fun to play, and they were enjoyable, and you could really sink your teeth into them. How it was Unleashed, it just felt like draining, and like, why is this so not fun? Like, I'm playing with cars that should be fun, and these tracks are imaginative, but I'm not having fun. And I think that's what sucked about it. But I think we should jump into more
GX.
We should definitely jump into GX. Yeah,
I thought we were going to, but like you kind of.
Yeah, we're just a tangent. You know, we're having a conversation, Mark. Podcast. Let's talk about.
I don't want to talk about stuff.
Customize your own machine and race through 20 gravity-defying courses at ridiculous speeds. F-Zero GX. The future of racing is in your hands. Only for Nintendo GameCube. Rated T for teen.
When you talk about F-Zero X to GX, I think of it as an evolution, but what do you think of it as? You think of it as a massive jump? What do you think of F-Zero GX? Because again, I've played some time with it, but not as much as you. This is a game that you grew up with. What is your take on it?
This is it's an evolution. This definitely takes what X was trying to do and just kind of like perfected it almost. Because this is like made by the right people who makes these like weird platformy course things, Amusement Visions, and they're well known for their Super Monkey Ball games, which are like have like weird, which are about like weird obstacles and like trying to make it through those, and like so you combine Super Monkey Ball with F-Zero, make it a lot faster, make it a lot more flashy, like because like this game a lot like. Because X is great, but it has no style. Like, WipEout that came, like, years before it looks better than F-Zero X, honestly. Because, like, F-Zero X is just, like, every stage just has, like, one type of color.
Yeah, it's a like, very dour...
It's very dour. It's very foggy.
It's like a dystopian universe kind of situation on that first game.
Yeah. This game has, like, a lot more style. It looks fucking gorgeous. Even it's aged well.
Yes.
Like, that's why people say, just fucking re-release it. Just, like, HD it.
I mean, people have been clamoring for this for 20 years.
Like, I see, like, people up-res this game on Dolphin all the time. It looks fucking gorgeous.
Right?
Just give this the 1,000-year door treatment you're about to fucking give Paper Mario right now. Please. But, like, this, they made it look better, and it's, like, it feels a lot faster. It looks a lot faster. And, like, the track design is just wacky. Also, this game is hard. It pulls no punches.
Yes.
Like, they're like, the thing about WipEout also has a learning curve to it. This is, like, in terms of control, a lot easier to get a hold of, but, like, the skill tree to get, like, to even finish some of those levels is, like, hard. Getting that story mode is hard, because there's, like, a normal and hard, version. Hard mode, you gotta be perfect.
Yeah, I saw.
Jesus.
Yeah, I was like doing the first mission for the time trial. It's like, oh fuck, you have to. Oh Jesus, they want what?
When I was a kid, I got stuck on the second mission.
They want what? Or not the first, but
trying to race Samurai Goro was fucking tough as shit.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it looked like he does like an impossible boost. Like, how do I get that fast? What the hell?
You're talking about that first race, right? That first lap. That first like, complete.
First race on Mute City. I think I got through that.
I got through that
Racing
too.
Samurai Goro was
and then
like,
him. Yeah.
Was not like fucking Wile E. Coyote Desert was like fucking tough for me as a kid. I haven't played it recently, but like
I played it recently. I could not do. I played it on I have it on my laptop now, and it's like I just need more time in it maybe because I don't know what's up with me. I just kind of fucked up. I couldn't get past it. So. But I played this racing wise as well in a few of the cups, and I played on that, and yeah, man, it feels fast. Like when we talk about maximizing, I feel like this is actually maximizing because not only do the vehicles actually look great, but the setting looks awesome. The pacing is, again, everything's fast, but it's fluid fast. It's not messy fast. You're not smacking around losing your mind. It's like the pacing is perfect with the momentum that you're moving at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think this game is like the...
It's great.
I forget the perfect word of phrasing. I'm just going to say this is like the high mark of the series.
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely. Again, as much as I love everything about SNES, like this and its learning curve, once you learn it, feel like you're in for a treat that is unlike anything that in sort of this level of racing that Nintendo has. You know what I mean? Like Nintendo has Mario Kart, yes, but at this level, no. Like this is it. This is it right here. This is peak, and that's why people have clamored, like you said, for a re-release. And yeah, man, it's visually attractive. You want to watch people play this game. And again, like, there's nothing wrong with 99 except for the fact that it should have been GX, obviously.
I mean, if you're gonna like taint a game with like 99,
I don't know. I'm saying fuck 99 and just make this.
Oh yeah, make a sequel. Not
a sequel. Just bring this to the Switch. Like,
yeah, you're right.
What the fuck?
But like, if you're gonna taint a game with 98 players, I prefer being like the original F-Zero. But like if they were to not re-release this game or like make a new one and just like release F-Zero GX 99 and you have to play it with other 99 people. Come on,
well, no, that's the great thing about like what they did with again SNES. The fact that you have 99, but you also have the choice to play the SNES version on the Switch. You have both options. So if you want a chiller version that's not filled with fucking maniacs, you can just play on the SNES version on Switch Online. So you have both options. If they just did GX 99 and you didn't have the option to play the original, that'd be the dirtiest shit on planet Earth. So yeah, I think like, again, I don't think it's difficult for them to remake this game and just put a 99 online option in here. It's not difficult. Just do it. And obviously,
that'd be a mess of fucking colors.
I know, but I'm saying like if they were to do it, like I'm saying like the same way that if they wanted to remake the original F-Zero, they could have done it and then put 99 into it. It's not fucking impossible.
What was that Nintendo 64 game you were talking about? Arrow Gauge.
That would have been
Arrow Gauge 99. You have like flying cars bumping into each other.
Dude, that's a traffic nightmare. Dude. I can't imagine that, man. I can't imagine more than like 12 people.
The sky would be so crowded now.
It'd be hell, baby. I think people would think it's the apocalypse out there. Like, it'd be crazy. But yeah, man, I think F-Zero GX is just fucking like it's just one of those games where, again, there's a reason why people say like the GameCube era is and Nintendo knows that's why they're not putting GameCube on the online platform, because they're gonna upcharge everything, and they'll bring it back. They'll bring all these games back, but at an upcharge level.
Hey, we're bringing some good shit. You better like that. That's when you're allowed to upcharge.
Yeah, like
unlike Sony, where they're bringing nothing to the table, where we're gonna upcharge you anyway.
Yeah, GX is good enough. If you up-res it, you remake it, you give us some online features on top of that. That's more than enough to cost a price, other than being online. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's worth the price. So yeah, man. I just think I just know that I need more time to play in this, and I probably, like I said, after I get into I'll play a little bit more of the SNES version for a bit of time, but I'll play Star Fox as well, finish that, and then I might do this. But there's so many games to play.
Okay, so yeah, we were talking about like arcade cabinets before that, where they move around with the car.
Yeah.
I think at MagFest, or no, it was not MagFest. It was at MagFest too, and it was at MomoCon. They had the arcade cabinet for F-Zero AX, which is just GX, but in the arcades, and that was awesome because the machine in that one moves around with the game.
Ooh.
And it's you're playing on a GX track with a moving cart, and it's it's
what a dream.
It's so cool.
What a dream, dude. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Again, I think. Again, for all these futuristic racers, it's one of those things where you give them the right place, you put them in the right place. You're talking about just indisputable, an indisputably impressive looking experience, and just being in that experience. And talking about sort of maximizing the experience, we did spend a little time playing a bit of the successor, or not the successor, because of course there's no current F-Zero except for 99 out there. There has not been a new F-Zero since 2004, so you're in just a rock and a hard place to sort of be able to play these classic experiences or just new experiences. And so I can't say this is a successor, but just to see its counterpart, WipEout, which again came out alongside, in between the original and X. And it kept going. It went along and kept going and going and going up until the early 2010s, when Studio Liverpool was killed off, unfortunately, by Sony. So we will no longer have wipeouts unless they get someone else to do it. But we did get an Omega Collection, and this is the Omega and we did play the Omega Collection.
I forgot it was called Omega Collection because when I saw you put up the video for Omega, it's do I have a different collection?
So you have the Omega Collection, which comes with WipEout HD, which came out in 2010, I believe. It comes out with the DLC, and then which is Fury, HD Fury, and it comes out with the Vita version, which is upscaled, and just almost pretty much remade to fit and look visually really good on modern hardware. Even the PS5 looks fantastic. Even though this was made for the PS4, the Fury 2048.
And those games look fucking gorgeous.
And these are absolutely attractive games.
And we were playing in VR. Are you gonna get to that?
That's the thing. Yeah, we were playing this in VR. The thing is, this is where I got my start in futuristic racing. 100%. I love WipEout. I think, like, again, just like F-Zero, it has its own control scheme that you just once you get the hang of it, you're having fun because it's such an interesting way to drive and control, and it's a great game to look at as well while you're playing it. Even, this again came out on the PS3, and I have it on the PS3. It's still a visually attractive game, but when you're looking at it on the Omega collection on the 4 and also the 5, it just is more sweetness, essentially. And, like, this video right here is gameplay on PS5. And it's just a very attractive game overall. Like, I love every bit of playing it, looking at it. Obviously, unlocking vehicles, the different manufacturers. It's a worthy game.
You appreciate more of the track design when you look at it in VR too.
Yeah, and this right here is the PS Vita version that was then transferred to Omega Collection.
I thought it was 3 games, but then you told me Fury was DLC to WipEout HD, and I was like, you lied to me!
Yeah, Fury is the DLC, but again, it is still basically a full game's worth of content, which, again, that's the developer's swan song, sadly, because of course they weren't able to make a full-on new game before they were shuttered. So
yeah, no AAA wants to make these games anymore, because, like, it's not that Nintendo doesn't know what to do with F-Zero, they just don't have much faith in a name anymore. Except for like stupid, sure. Except for like as of recently, they're just like experimenting with like F-Zero 99 is like an elaborate experiment. But like the thing is, developers came to them like wanting to make a new F-Zero. Like I told you before, like these indie developers, they wanted to make a new F-Zero. But like they came to Nintendo for pitching a new F-Zero, but then Nintendo was like, "Nah, we don't want to do that." So they just made their own.
It's not even that they wanted to make an F-Zero. They were developing a futuristic racing game, and they wanted to just do what Ubisoft did with Starlink: Battle for Atlas, which is, can we include a couple of vehicles in our futuristic racing game? That was their thing. It was not.
You looked it up?
Because that's what you told me originally, right? It was like
no. They
literally wanted to make a full-on F-Zero.
Yes.
Okay.
But then Nintendo was like, "Nah, we're good," and it was like, "Fuck it, we'll just make our own F-Zero then. Fuck it."
Okay.
Just without your IP and everything that goes with it, we'll just make our own F-Zero.
Yeah.
We'll call it Smith-Smiro. I forgot what I forgot what the actual name of that racer is, but it's like
but it's on Switch.
Yeah, it's on Switch.
Yeah. So it's out there.
And the AV Amusement Visions, which is who made GX, which is currently the Yakuza team. Like, and they were quoted in interviews saying like, "Hey, and Nintendo comes to us wanting a new F-Zero, well, we're down to make it."
Right. I mean,
and it's like, yeah, like I would love that.
Their Yakuza shit, which is already one of the coolest franchises right now.
They know how to, because they release those shits yearly.
Yeah.
And I think like next year they're having like 2 Yakuza games coming out, and and it looks good.
Yeah.
Like they don't like. I don't think they had the fucking blunder yet.
Yeah.
And it's like because they know exactly what they're doing, and it's like fuck. If they can get them on like a new F-Zero, that would be the shit, man.
It would be, and again, like I think like we said before, like I do think that there's space in the Nintendo's universe for that. I mean, the thing that bothered me was you're gonna put 200cc, and that was a fun thing. 200cc on the move back over. You're on. There you go.
No.
200cc. You're gonna put 200cc
Mario Kart 8
on Mario Kart 8. And it's a mess because the tracks weren't formatted for 200cc. So it's a fun experiment, but if you want high speed,
some tracks are fine with this, some tracks aren't.
Some are, some aren't. But overall, in total, Mario Kart 8 is not made for it. But if you're looking for, but I think that's again, you want a hyper fast game. Nintendo is making more money than any other company, game company, more than PlayStation, obviously, more than Xbox, obviously. They have the resources to do it. They've had the resources for years. If it was the Wii U era, I can understand the hesitation because obviously during the Wii U era they were tight. They had to survive on 3DS and 2DS. That was it. And it's like, all right, can we just make this work? But this is the Switch era. Can we diversify our portfolio of just Mario Kart? Mario Kart is now at its end, by the way. They're going to move on to a new Mario Kart. I would love if F-Zero 99 is the first step in bringing back F-Zero for future audiences to just be able to play a faster, more fluid game than just because again I think there's a magic spot 150cc for Mario Kart, and then there's the beauty of F-Zero, which is that it's a hyper fast, fluid racing game, and we deserve a modern interpretation anyway. I think and again, obviously people have even asked Nintendo. There was that guy that bought shares. They bought shares.
It's just an accident. There's gonna be a new F-Zero,
and they said no. We're going. They just said a bland answer. I think they said we're looking into developing several key titles for new for IP or something like that. Like, it was just a bland answer, and it's
we're making stuff.
We're making stuff, which is just an arrogant thing to say. Like, it's a sad but arrogant thing to say.
Hey, they're rich. They don't give a fuck.
And they don't give a fuck, and that's the sad thing. It's like
they got all the money in the world. So if they were behind, they would probably experiment. If this was still the Wii U era, we probably have like 2 F-Zeros by now.
They would. It would just be a weird one because they use the gamepad weirdly. So we saw that Star Fox game. Let's never forget.
Just port the Switch, and now we don't have to deal with the gamepad, man.
Never forget that.
There's a good game inside Zero.
Yep.
It's just like it's stuck with one control scheme.
It's very weird that these technically push the limit Nintendo games just outside of Metroid now are just kind of wasted. They're just off to the side now. Nintendo's like, who cares?
Miyamoto's like, I don't want to make a new F-Zero until I.
But it's like, why does he have to be the only one? Like, there's like there's 7 billion people on Earth, man. I
want Nintendo to make a VR peripheral. I think they can do so much with that.
I mean, I thought that when I saw the Switch design, when I first saw it, and I saw that it's like, you just sit it up there, like it's just a tablet. I was like, this is probably...
They did that with the Labo.
Probably an easy... Yeah, it did that. That's right. It did that with the Labo, with the cardboard costing shit. I can't believe it.
It's a box!
It's a box. I cannot believe that they charge money for cardboard. Impressive, Nintendo. Just when we were talking about the PlayStation 5 price increase, they charge money for fucking cardboard. I can't, man. Fucking Christ. When people bought it. So, you bought it.
I didn't.
You didn't?
I don't have... Do you see Lava over there?
Oh, good point. You did buy it.
Over there is like the junkyard...
The Mario Kart Live circuit, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Over there is like the junkyard of Switch peripherals right there, and in the corner of my room. You see Lava over there? No, sir.
No, sir.
Not yet, at least.
Ugh, please. Alright.
I think it's like, now that it's like not a thing anymore, it's probably should get cheaper. Yeah. But I don't know, things are going up. Fuck.
Yeah, I will say also, just as a side piece, back to just talking about WipEout as well, I do think it sucks that PlayStation also is just not as big on racing games as, like, at all. They got rid of Evolution Studios, who did MotorStorm and also did Drive Club, but that was kind of a
PS5 could use a lot more racing games, honestly. For like the way graphics are right now, we can use like a super high tech.
Well, again, they put all their eggs into the Gran Turismo basket. That's what I was going to say is they put their technical proficiency eggs into Gran Turismo.
Look, we got like Advanced Warfare. So how about we get Gran Turismo Future?
Oh my God.
Which is like they make up a bunch of like.
I'm going to be.
They go and develop.
Mark, I would love that. Years ago they did a motorcycle game called Tourist Trophy. I would love if like PlayStation asked them, hey, if we paid you this much money, can some of your dev team do a WipEout game? Just to see, like, they would be the ones to do, like, because the one thing I kind of hate is there's no racing games, no futuristic racing games that really are all in on, like, building a championship bracket kind of thing, like going in and making a sort of like Smash kind of thing where you're going in and you have a settle it in Smash. Like, if they had, because Gran Turismo has an entire area for racing online and championship level stuff. Outside of that, you give Polyphony, and they have enough team to do this, you give Polyphony like, hey, we want you to develop this. You give them money, man, watch the fuck out. Because, I mean, you think it's boring, but I feel like if they said, make a WipEout, they'd make a fucking serious-ass WipEout game that would be probably a fuck ton of fun.
I know, I think it'd be funny when the Gran Turismo developers, like, when they went to actual, like, car manufacturers, like Ford and Honda, and it's like, hey, if you guys were to make a hover car, what would be the specs and engineering behind it? And they actually make a futuristic racing sim.
Dude, you know how beautiful. That's the dream right there, man. Like you get that, because they already have those manufacturers doing what was called Gran Turismo Visions, which was just concept cars for the game itself.
Oh,
Can you make a concept car for our game?
Like Star Wars Visions.
Basically. And that's it. Like, and that was the whole thing. So they did that already. So it would be cool, man. And again, they're really the only racing developer out there for PlayStation. So There's and EA owns like 7 different racing developers as well. So it's like you're not, you want to know where a lot more other racing games could come from. Well, EA
dude, I want Gran Turismo car because it's realistic. I want like them to, if we're getting Visions, I want them to get like a realistic like cartoony cars. Like I want like a black and white cartoon. Squash and stretch car in Gran Turismo, but make it as realistic as it can, but still do the squash.
That'd be the scarily ugliest thing. You know that the first game was a kart racer kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it was like cartoony.
Cartoony.
I had that shit too.
Oh my god.
I actually own a copy of it. It was weird.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy where they go. Guys, I think that's.
Oh wait, but real quick, because we're talking about we were talking about earlier about racing, future racers that got us into
racing games that got
future type racing games that kind of got us into games kind of like F-Zero.
Yeah.
My exposure to that was Sonic Riders. Because that's it's kind of a futuristic racer. And it's a fun one, even though it came out
you talked about Rocket Power before. And
it came out all the way in 2006.
Yeah, that doesn't count though, right? Yeah.
Huh?
That doesn't count though. They were late to the party.
Well, they were late, but that was my intro to super futuristic racing. Keep in mind, I didn't get into gaming until 2007.
That's right. Crazy.
So that was my intro to Super Racing Racer, and it's a fun one. I think you played the first Sonic Riders.
I did.
And everything.
Like you said, Zero Gravity is better.
No, I didn't. Free Riders is better.
Free Riders.
Fight me! No, I heard.
What a terrible idea.
Somebody has actually worked on a patch to make Free Riders work with a controller. I gotta try it myself.
God bless them. I wonder how long.
I'm curious how it plays now.
I wonder how long that took.
Probably ages.
Yeah.
Because that game came out forever ago.
Exactly.
And I'm talking. This is recent news.
Yeah. Like yesterday. No.
Yeah.
Probably.
They probably released another patch for it, but yeah, Sonic Riders, the first one is even though it has a tough learning curve, there's a ton of fucking mechanics too. There's some mechanics I still don't have the hang of because they got speed, power, and flights. I still don't know all those pathways for some of them.
That's why I love I love the Riders. I love Riders, and I don't like obviously Zero Gravity. I think has significant issues.
I hate that drift.
But I wish they just finished what they clearly were trying to start. You know what I mean? There's clearly a finished product that they just kind of wasted off to the side. Because, again, they just were alright, futuristic, curve, turn, charge, fire. I like that idea, but they didn't fucking finish it.
And then they go back to basics with Free Riders, but let's make it only work with a controller nobody wants.
With that Kinect garbage, what a mess.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think, what the fuck was else? Yeah, I think. By the way, that's probably you wonder if that's probably where they could have taken after Transformed. We were where do they go outside of making a generic kart racer? They probably could have made a futuristic kart racer. That probably would have been the next step if they were actually trying to do something interesting. But that's not Sumo doesn't.
Sumo Digital. I would like Sumo Digital to take on Sonic Riders.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just mean a completely new futuristic racing leaning into whatever direction they go. I
would honestly just rather have them do a Sonic Riders. If more than Sonic.
I want Sumo back, not to do what they last did with Sonic Racers.
Yeah.
That's literally what I want. But we don't get what we want, guys. This has been Blasting Turbo Ports, talking about futuristic kart racers, of course. Guys, if you enjoy Blasting Turbo Ports, if you enjoyed our conversation, if you enjoyed any of our clips and content, we're going to start segmenting these out. If you enjoyed anything here, make sure to check us out either on this YouTube channel or on the Screen Blast Society YouTube channel, where you can find us as well. Of course, this is one of many podcasts on the Screen Blast podcast on your favorite podcast service, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts is about to not exist. It's about to be folded into YouTube Music, apparently, so that's gone. And CastBox.
Can you still do podcasts, though?
We still have a podcast, but I'm saying Google Podcast, that platform, is being folded into YouTube Music, apparently. So
I know. Will YouTube let you do podcast playlists still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just going to be all centered around YouTube Music and all that. YouTube Music, they want to make.
That's what else.
They want to compete against.
Isn't Anchor gone and just
Anchor is now Spotify?
Yeah.
As well. So yeah, everything's being consolidated, but YouTube is just late to the party. Google's always late to the party. They made that social media app, Google Plus, like 10 years too late.
It's dead.
You know. Anyway, guys, you can check us out there. We can check both of us out there, but Mark, where can they specifically check your content? Where can they specifically find you? Instead of the dumpster outside of Wendy's.
Damn it, you just gave it away already.
I know. That's my job.
My lack of content that I haven't. I have a Halloween special that's like fucking 3 years old now.
Oh shit!
I need to make a new one.
It's that holiday season.
I'm not gonna make a new one before this year's Halloween.
He's gonna do it, ladies and gentlemen. He just announced it.
Got the feed. But yeah, you can find my old videos on K9 Biscuits. That's K9BISKUTS. I'm gonna say the same thing I say on every podcast, which I don't follow up through. I will one day, please believe me. But yeah, I will make new videos eventually. But you can find my backlog there. Most of the time, I'm just making stuff here.
Mark will one day make a video.
It'll be a movie based on a true story, and I'll be played by Samuel L. Jackson.
Guys, you can find me, of course, on atdemocracy.com, ATHEMOCRACY.com. You can find me on that same name on YouTube. Of course, you can find me at what are you doing? You can find me at Bryan the Baltimorean, of course. You can find me at BryantheBaltimorean.com, and you can find me right here.
Strip club.
You can find me right here, not at the strip club, but at the Screen Blast podcast.
We could be recording in a strip club. They don't know.
Out of here. You can get the Screen Blast.
We're backstage at a strip club right now.
Right now, this is clearly the strip club. But you can go to the Screen Blast podcast. You can find me there, of course, as well. Of course, I'd recommend Cartoon Chat. We did one on Powerpuff Girls. You'll find that by the time this comes out. Powerpuff Girls will be out. Worlds are checking out, guys. Again, guys, thanks for watching. I'm running a little too long here. I'm getting really fucking.
Oh yeah, it was like
guys. Thanks for watching. Mark, say the magic words.
Lock it out, everybody. What?